Okay, now let's talk about some risks that we do not have talked about from this systematic risk. So, the other is a purchasing power risk or inflation risk. This means when the money we get or the return we get from our investment, it might be in forms of interest if we borrow or if we lend. I mean, if it might also be a dividend if we buy a share of one company, and if that return
Well, yeah,
is not enough to cover inflation rates. For example, I lend the money, that means I invested in, probably I might not buy any bond.
limit.
Even if I lend this $100 to someone else, it can also still be called an investment, because the definition of investment is any sacrification of resources. That resource might be that is expressed in terms of monetary or or any other thing. For example, time. If you spend watching a movie, you are investing your time on movies. So any sacrification of resources. A resource might be time, money, something that can be expressed in terms of monetary value, or something that might not. But when you sacrifice that resource, you should expect some future return. And regarding to the definition or to the perspective of investment, it is the expectation of future returns in the long run. So we are looking about the subject of finance. We look an investment from the perspective of monetary terms, or investing something that can be expressed in terms of monetary value rather than time and any other things. Because don't forget, the course, it is a financial market about finance. In finance is something that's related to monetary value. That's why we focus on monetary terms. So if I expect some return, if I invest this $100 by expecting some returns, for example, so if I invest this in bonds, or if I buy bond, it's called a an investment. Or if I lend this money directly to someone else, it is still called an investment, because I'm expecting a return, future return. If I put this $100 to the bank, that means I'm lending to the bank as a deposit, it is still be called as an investment, because I will earn periodic interest payments. Good. So when I invest, I will expect something. For example, if the person is willing to pay 10% interest, let me think this $100 is invested in bond, and the bond pays an interest of 10%. So my expectation is the inflation rate will also be 10%. This is my expectation. Finally, I will at the end I will get the whole amount, or at the maturity period after these 2 years. The the last interest payment in the maturity $100 in the same year. However, in the first year I will get 10% of interest. For the second year, I will get 10% of interest in the full maturity principal. However, a deviation has been created. That means I expected the inflation to be 10%, but it came out to be 50%. 50%. This is a risk, because the definition of risk is a chance where the expected return means that 10% that I expect the inflation to be, or I expected the return will cover all of the inflation. However, this might vary from the realized return, but my actual return is something that do not even cover the inflation. So if there is a variation between the expectation in what I get or the realized return, because it might be because of different sources or factors, we can call these sources and factors as elements of risk, which can be broadly classified as macro and macro specific. When we say this word macro, it is a big, which is in the country specific, country wide, which is not firm specific, that we have seen till now as a systematic or elements of risk. systematic element. The other is micro, which is specific to the company, our company, which was unsystematic risk.